Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Etc., the only movie review podcast you need in life. My name is Mike Webb. I'll be your host. If you guys are new to the show, I welcome you all. I basically review a movie that's currently out in theaters or in some cases out on streaming and grade it on a number scale from 0 to 10. That is the case until recently, where this movie that I'm about to review used to be played in theaters everywhere, but it's not playing anywhere anymore. And if you're lucky, I hope you can find it soon, because this is a movie that's getting a lot of awards attention because we're still in the fall to winter movie season, and award season is just around the corner, and that is the latest film from Todd Field called Tár, which premiered at the Venice Film Festival and earned star Cate Blanchett the Best Actress award over there. I heard tons of unanimous praise. Some are calling it one of the best of the year. I've heard some other things as well, but let's get to my review. Is Tár a masterpiece or a disaster? Let's find out with my review. Now, before we get into this review, I must cap you off with a warning. If you guys are new to the show, or if this is your first time, or if you need a little bit of refresher, I am diagnosed with autism, so you may hear my wording get jumbled up a bit. So I hope you all forgive me, and I hope you all enjoy. Tár is the third feature film from actor-turned-filmmaker Todd Field, following his debut feature 2001's In the Bedroom and his sophomore effort 2006's Little Children. Field earned nominations for both films in the adapted screenplay category at the Oscars, as well as a Best Picture nomination for the former. This is Field's first film in 16 years. The film, set in the international world of classical music, centers on Lydia Tár, played by Cate Blanchett, widely considered one of the greatest living composer-conductors and first ever female chief conductor of a major German orchestra. This film also stars the likes of French actress Noémie Merlant from Portrait of a Lady on Fire, German actress Nina Haas, star of the Christian Petzold films Barbara and Phoenix, real-life cellist Sophie Kauer in her acting debut, and three incredible British actors, including the legendary Julian Glover from Empire Strikes Back and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Allan Corduner, and Mark Strong. So this is my very first Todd Field film. I've not seen any of his other works. I know a lot of people know him as an actor, but most notably his role as the pianist Nick Nightingale from the Kubrick film Eyes Wide Shut, which I have not seen. But his previous films that he's made, In the Bedroom and Little Children, they've garnered a lot of critical and awards attention. But like I said, this is the first, Tár is the first film I've seen of his, so I cannot comment on any of his other works at this time. This film is this character study about Lydia Tár, which kind of plays out like a biopic, like if she was like a person in real life, but it's a fictional character. And she is this female conductor slash composer who is highly prolific and at an absolute high point in her career. At the very beginning, we see her being interviewed by Adam Gopnik at the New Yorker Festival. The New Yorker is a magazine, in case anyone wants to know. Of the many things that is being profiled on, she is a young musical prodigy discovered by Van Cliburn. She is one of the last few people to be mentored by Leonard Bernstein. She is an EGOT winner. For those of you who don't know what EGOT means, it's an acronym for Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. Basically, the four big awards in the entertainment industry. Emmys are for TV, Grammys are for music, Oscars are for film, and Tony is for Broadway and stage. She is also a queer character, or as she calls herself, a U-Haul lesbian. Her wife's name is Sharon, played by Nina Haas. She's a first-chair violinist. Together, they have an adopted daughter named Petra. It's mentioned that Lydia previously conducted in major orchestras in Cleveland, Boston, New York, and London. Now she is the first woman conducting the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. Her biggest challenge at the moment is to compose a live recording of Gustav Mahler's Fifth Symphony, which is considered to be extremely difficult. She has recorded all the previous ones, but this is like her big ticket. Also in the midst of this, there's something with a former protege from the past who's mostly off screen that brings up something truly awful to Lydia's attention. I don't want to say what it is. This is one of those movies where I want to go into deep spoilers, but I don't want to, because I want you all to discover it for yourselves. So I mentioned this film premiered at the Venice Film Festival back in September, where it earned Blanchett the Volpe Cup Award for Best Actress. It also screened at Telluride and the New York Film Festival, and believe me, this movie movie is also in contention to be a big awards player this season. It's leading this year's Gotham Awards with 5 nominations. I mentioned Todd Field starred in Stanley Kubrick's film Eyes Wide Shut, and I think he studied a lot of Kubrick's filmmaking motives while on that set. A lot of people have been asking since his last film what his next project was going to be, and for a while, he was working on a film with the late novelist Joan Didion, but it ultimately never got made. In the years since his last feature, he's also been shooting a lot of commercials. He first came up with an idea for the film when someone asked him to write about a young, promising conductor. But then in 2012, he wanted to change the age of the character. And then around 2019, 2020, he read the book For the Love of Music by John McCary. And during lockdown, they talked, and McCary gave him a crash course surrounding the world of classical music. Now, does the phrase instant classic come up nowadays? Because I feel like this is an instant classic. This is an extraordinary piece of work, and it has so many creative things on its mind from the moment it starts. At the center of it is this cautionary tale about this maestro of a character who slowly descends into losing everything in her power. This would definitely be called a cancel culture movie. When watching it, you can see up front that you're asking the question, do you separate the art from the artist? In that regard. Now, let's talk about the acting. Like, is there anything new that needs to be said about Cate Blanchett? Because before seeing this movie, and I said if I were running the Oscars, I originally had Tong Wei from Decision to Leave as my pick for Best Actress. Now it's Blanchett. And I'm not just saying that because of word of mouth and everything. Just like this is nearly top tier work from Blanchett. She's both subtle and vigorous in different forms of her character. She not only had to learn to play the piano, but also learning German and also learning how to conduct. And she is relentless. The character is very interesting because the more we get to know about her, the more we find out she's kind of a horrible human being. Like, is she being manipulative? Is she abusing her power? And it that character alone definitely reminded me of Daniel Day Lewis's character in There Will Be Blood, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. When the teaser trailer came out, Todd Field said in a statement that he wrote the role specifically for Blanchett, and if she refused, he would not make the movie. And this performance definitely shows why he wanted her. Her character at times likes to be with her wife and daughter at their flat, but also has a separate apartment for writing and composing new material. There's also a scene in the middle of the movie where she has a conversation with her daughter and she's being bullied at school. And then when she drops her off at the school, she comes up to the other girl who's bullying her and speaks in German to basically threaten her if that girl ever makes fun of her daughter ever again. Like, she is someone not to be messed with. I can go on and on about where her character goes in this, but I can't because this is a spoiler free review. Blanchett is so extraordinary in this. She excels her acting chops to the highest degree imaginable. Noémie Merlant, who's the star of Celine Sciamma's Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which I need to finish watching, by the way. She plays the role of Francesca, who is Lydia's assistant, who has aspirations of becoming a composer herself. There's a sense of trust surrounding them on whether or not she will do anything Lydia asks her to do. This is her English speaking debut, and she's very solid in this. This is not Nina Haas's first English role. I know that for sure. She is the star of two of Christian Petzold's films, Barbara from 2011 and Phoenix from 2014, which some people have arguably called her performance in Phoenix her best role. She was also in A Most Wanted Man and was very recently in The Contractor with Chris Pine. I know she's in both of those movies, but I've not seen them yet. She's magnificent in the role of Sharon whenever she's acting alongside Cate Blanchett. She helps bring balance into conversation, but when the past catches up to Lydia, she's worried for her. I want to talk about Sophie Kauer, who's making her acting debut. She plays the character of Olga, who's this young Russian cellist auditioning to be in the orchestra. She's a cellist in real life, and she's British, which I didn't even know about. I mean, her character has this thick Russian accent that you can easily mistake her as somebody from Russia. There's this scene where Lydia invites her to have lunch and wants to get to know about her, which composer inspires her, or what piece of music does she love to hear. Lydia even asks her how she heard that piece of music, and she says, "Was it a record?" But then Olga replies, "I found it on YouTube." And at that moment, I felt this sense of a generational gap in terms of finding a source. Let me briefly talk about Julian Glover. He plays the preceding composer to Lydia Tár. He has conversations with her back and forth about everything going on in her life in general. Julian Glover is in his late 80s and has been acting for nearly 60 years, starting with his debut role in the Oscar winning film Tom Jones from 1963. But his most notable roles are from his work he did in the 1980s, particularly as General Veers in Star Wars Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back, and his villainous roles as Eris in the James Bond film For Your Eyes Only, and Walter Donovan in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I didn't know that he voices Aragog the giant spider in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So, all you Potterheads who are listening, you've learned something new today. Mark Strong's in the movie as well, but only for a couple scenes, doesn't offer a whole lot. He plays a fellow conductor who also manages a fellowship program that Lydia has founded for inspiring female conductors. And like I said, he doesn't offer a whole lot. I failed to mention that this movie goes in a very psychological way to the point where it becomes completely suspenseful and a little bit harrowing to watch. Now, let me talk about the craftsmanship because it is on full display. Even though it's only his third film as a filmmaker, Todd Field is working on a master level. If he does not get nominated for either direction or screenplay, that would be kind of a travesty because the direction is spectacular and the screenplay is so sharp. It's riveting. It definitely reminded me of how when Aaron Sorkin wrote the screenplay for The Social Network, and you get like this like dialogue heavy scenes, and then you get to see in this movie play out as well. And it was like, wow, this is like very like this is kind of like Sorkin-y esque dialogue, I would say. And then you have a couple scenes that I want to highlight. I mentioned the New Yorker interview scene. That is not only one of the best edited sequences, it's also one of the best openings I've seen all year. But perhaps the best scene of the entire movie is where Lydia teaches a class at Juilliard, where it's this long, unbroken 15-minute tracking shot, and you get to see like little details where there's like a student who's like he has like his legs shaking because like this is Lydia Tár teaching my class at the moment. The cinematography is astonishing. It's by a German DP named Florian Hofmeister. He shot a couple of Terrence Davis's films, The Deep Blue Sea and A Quiet Passion. The latter film is a biopic about Emily Dickinson. He also shot the British spy drama Official Secrets and the horror film Antlers from last year. He's also done a lot of television work. The editing by Monica Wilkie is very well executed. The production design is so elegant. The costumes are very solid too, even though it takes place in the present day. And I mentioned the New Yorker scene again, but during the opening where it's like edited, you get to see Lydia getting her measurements from a tailor, and you get to see the tailor hand making a suit for her. It's only less than a minute long, yet it is enjoyably amusing to watch. The sound design is incredible as well. One thing I failed to mention is that Lydia has a really good ear for sound and music. And there's a scene where she goes for a run, and when she stops to take a breather, all of a sudden she hears a woman screaming. And the music, I mean, it can't be a movie about music without it being a crucial character. The film mostly relies on pre-existing pieces of classical music, but there is an original score by Oscar-winning Icelandic composer Hildur Gunnadóttir, who won a couple years ago for Joker, a movie that I'm not particularly a fan of. Sorry. And there are also a couple of moments of hilarity. There's one instance where Lydia plays an accordion off key and makes a fun little ditty. But the most interesting thing I was surprised by was its use of credits and how in the opening it's more of the people you see at the very end, the people who are like involved with like the production and the post production, the people working behind the camera, the makeup, the sound, and yeah, and everything. And for the end credits, it's just the cast and the music. That's it. Another filmmaker that plays with that aspect of the credits pretty well is another actor turned filmmaker named Brady Corbett. The two films he's made so far, The Childhood of a Leader and Vox Lux, also play with the credits in a different fashion. Both films open with the credits with the cast and the majority of the production crew, but for the end credits, the former only lasts a minute and it's only credited to the people behind the music. And for the latter, it's that and also the post production crew and the legal team involved. Now, this movie is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and someone has described this movie as somewhat of a Rorschach test. Throughout the movie, there are terms in musicology that a lot of people are not going to understand unless you're like pro in like what the musical terms are and that you're a virtuoso. Like, there are movies that do like a lot of explanation, like tech babble or science stuff, and I'm just going to nod and pretend that I'm on board with whatever nonsense they're saying. Some people will also think it's boring. They'll say it's too long. It is almost 3 hours. Well, 2:38 to be exact. But to me, I think with a little bit of meandering in the middle for in terms of pacing, the movie flies by. I was never bored watching it. I enjoyed myself watching it. But I think most people are going to be extremely confused or probably upset about the last shot in the movie because they're going to come out they're going to be watching that scene and be like, "What?" But when I looked it up on trying to like find an explanation, I looked at the Wikipedia page. I went, "Oh, okay. That makes more sense." And then when it gets to the credits, the music that plays out is the exact opposite of what classical music is, and it just completely fools the audience. I have a good friend who was very lucky to have seen this film recently, and I hope he doesn't mind if I'm borrowing his review. But he said in his review that that last shot made his jaw drop like a cartoon character. If I had one little nitpick, there's a brief minute long scene where Lydia has to help out with a neighbor next door. And to me, that scene felt a little unnecessary. I mean, it's a scene that's intended to make you feel uncomfortable. And granted, in that scene, Lydia feels uncomfortable. So we're experiencing that scene with her. So yeah, we're just like feeling what she is experiencing. But other than that, Tar is great. I think some critics might call this movie, quote, a damn near perfect movie, and I might agree with that statement as well. I guess I would call Tar a masterpiece. Huh? Huh? Okay, whatever. So Tar is now playing in theaters everywhere, or it was at the time of recording. I mean, I was planning on seeing it a second time, but now it seems like it'll be available on premium video on demand starting this Tuesday. I don't know if that's actually true. It could be just a little rumor, but that's sad. I mean, everyone who's been going to the cinemas recently are more focused on like the big event tentpole movies. Like Black Panther Wakanda Forever has just come out and it just like grabbed all the majority of the screens and leaves very little room for other movies to counter program. But there are other movies like Black Adam, which is just a messy and convoluted spectacle of emptiness, and Ticket to Paradise, which essentially boils down to being your run of the mill, average rom com played out in typical formulaic, cliched, predictable fashion. But there are movies that not a lot of people are just like going out and planning to see. Like Tar is one of them, and Triangle of Sadness, which I reviewed, and Decision to Leave, another movie that I reviewed. And Tar had one of the best per theater averages of the year when it was in limited release back in October in its first week with almost $40,000 per theater average from four theaters in New York and LA. But as of recording, the film has only grossed $4.5 million and it doesn't open to the rest of the world until the new year. My parents did tell me that the majority of people watch movies nowadays via streaming, whether it's on their phone, their TV, or computer. I don't think you get the same value of watching it compared to watching it on the big screen. And I am a proud believer in the theatrical experience. And this is one to be experienced, if not for the acting. Watch it for the craftsmanship involved, the music, the sound. The story can be like mixed to some people, but I hope this movie gets re-released come award season, and I hope everyone gets a chance to support smaller films like this, smaller yet very intimate films like Tar, like Triangle of Sadness. But if you're lucky and if Tar is still showing near you, you should definitely rush out and see it before it's too late. And I'm going to give Tar a 9.5 out of 10. This movie is definitely going to end up being on my top 10 list of the year, probably top 5. It's that good, and I love it. So, anyway, guys, I am now going to storm off. I'll probably go on YouTube, find a classical music playlist, probably listen to some Wagner, some Beethoven, some Mozart. Maybe it'll put me to sleep. Who knows? But anyway, guys, let's end this review and call it a day. Well, guys, that's going to do it for my review of Tar. Have you guys seen this movie yet? I mean, I hope so, but by the time you're probably listening to this, it's not playing near you anymore because of oversaturated in the market, and that's kind of disappointing, but I hope it comes back to theaters one day. I know it's going to get a lot of buzz come award season and all that jazz, but in the meantime, guys, you can follow me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Real Mike Webb. You can also follow the show on Instagram at FilmETCcast. Make sure you subscribe to this show on the many places that we stream, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. Leave a good rating, leave a 5-star review on our Apple Podcast page. That'll help get the show up to the top of the charts. Tell your friends, spread the word of mouth, share the show if you must. I'll be back soon with more movie reviews, but until then, thanks for listening, and I will see you all at the cinema.